My name is Marla Hlady. I live and work in Toronto, and I make work that ranges from installation, sculpture, to kinetics, sound, drawing. And for CAFKA, I've provided a few different works. One is a piece called Playing Piano, which is a modified player piano, as well as some drawings and small sound objects. The playing piano is, in a way, a relatively complex piece. For me, it's the most complex piece I've made to date. And what I essentially did was took a reproducing player piano that was built in around 1928. And a player piano is a piano that runs off of a pneumatic system and plays itself. It's a very old technology, but very popular technology in the early 1900s. I then took the concept of preparing it in the idea of a John Cage prepared piano, where you do changes to the piano, where you get the piano to sound differently than it normally does sound. And in my case, I introduced a whole range of amplification, machines, those sorts of possibilities to see how I could get the piano to sound differently. And what I wanted was visually this balance between this very beautiful old machine, like that machine, that piano is fantastically intricate, and you don't always get the opportunity to see the inside working. So part of the piece is showing the beauty and the functioning of this original object, and then my introductions, keeping it just as revealed and just as spare, but juxtaposing the beautiful old wood mechanics with the newer aluminum constructions. A really nice example of this investigation for me was the one machine that sits underneath the piano is actually, and it was designed to strum the strings, which is a nod to John Cage's teacher, Henry Cowell, because one of his preparations for a piano was to ask a piano player to reach into the piano and strum the strings. So many of my decisions are nods to these earlier composers. But this particular machine actually is taken from a Xerox machine, where if you look at the machine, you will see the light, that action the light makes when it's copying. It's that part of the mechanics that I took out and then rebuilt into a new frame, and then of course introduced extra motors to move the strumming arms up and down. But I actually didn't invent that machine. I just modified it. The music is I mean, it was an interesting choice to make, because there's so many ways I could have gone, whether it was making a very interesting choice conceptually based on research, or making my own role. And in the end, after months and months of working on that choice, I ended up using a roll that came with the piano. Partly because I had listened to all of the rolls, and this one I kept returning to as something that sounded, something that kept my attention. And I liked the way, from a kind of a conceptual material thinking, that it was found, like the piano was found, like the strumming machine was found. It all kind of came together nicely. When I was working on the piece, I was looking for something that was visually a bit like a circus. And I wanted to make a piece that was complex enough that you couldn't possibly understand it, so you try not. You don't. Most people unless they're a machine maker like I am, they really can't wrap their head around everything. So there's this balance between being visually engaged or amazed or intrigued and orally consumed or incredibly attentive. So for me, the piece was never about a finishing point or a resolution, but a bit about a visual circus and a delightful engagement.